Good evening all, it's Josh here, 20 to 6 as I speak. I'm going to do the thing I always do and say this will be a short video. I hope you had a good weekend. Those of you who followed Colin's golf tips certainly did. A nice 30 to 1, 28 to 1 winner there of the European Masters, so well done if you had a tickle on that. Not too much happened on the blog. The free post, the three race trends races highlighted two of the three race winners, I think, so they did okay. But anyway, the purpose of this short video is just to look back quickly on Monday's racing and two horses in particular, mainly just to go through the thought process I went through pre-race and post-race, because you may or you may not find that of some use. The first horse I'm going to look at is Moorlands Jack, who I didn't have a penny on, didn't back. Won at 6 to 1, was 13 to 2 widely available. It wasn't a strategy qualifier. I did look at him, as I do flick through all runners. I can live and I will sleep easily this evening, having not backed him, and can live with that. But I thought you may want to know why I didn't, and I wanted to know myself why I didn't. There's a few things that kind of general points that I made in my own head. And there's also a couple of things that I missed, and I will highlight the things that I missed, which I went through and back to look at. If I'd have spotted those things pre-race, it wouldn't have made a difference in terms of, say, bet of the day. I wouldn't have tipped him for reasons I'm about to explain. I may have thrown a fiver or tenner at him or mentioned him in the notes, but I didn't, and as I said, I didn't have a penny on. So Moorlands Jack. What was the first thing that stood out to me when I flicked through the card? Two things: the fact he was a single figure price around 6 to 1, and his age, the fact he was 12 in a race full of horses that had kind of 6, 7, 8-year-olds in. And I jumped to the conclusion, having looked at that, my head was already in the space, I think, of it's going to have to be a pretty special reason to back him, and I've kind of already decided not to. Those quick, hasty decisions can make you look a fool. I should think backing handicap chasers, kind of 10-year-old and older, at single-figure prices, may lead you to the poorhouse over time, but they clearly do win, and this was an excellent piece of placing from Jeremy Scott. As you will see here, I did click on the Instant Expert tab. Click. And you will see there, this is pre-race GGs, and you will look at that thinking, oh, well, Josh, why didn't you have a nibble? Some of you who have GG's Gold may well have used as a starting point and had a nibble. I'd be interested to know if you did using this. You can see there why you might. There are very few horses while you wait as the only kind of other, well, three distance winners, but his suitability to the track, to the class, to the distance, he was on his last winning mark. So you could see, I maybe could have looked at that and gone, yeah, that will do. It was soft, apparently, and that is the other thing that kind of put me off. Looking at it in the context of his age and a single figure price, he was 0 from 8 on soft, and that did influence my mind. He did place a couple of times, and that was it really. His age, his price, assuming I didn't go through any of the other runners on this particular occasion, I assumed, given the age of some, there was probably some lightly raised chasers there, and he may have his work cut out. The Instant Expert tab would kind of lead you to think that he was up against quite a lot of dross. So why could we have backed him? Well, there's two things really. The going, which I didn't kind of open him up using this tool and look at his form. But you will see that if I click on going, which I think has changed to soft, you will see, well, that was as good to soft, so that's not going to be any good. It was apparently soft. Hold on. I'll just look through it. Well, you can see on good to soft, anyway, that his form was fine. That win there is that win today. So before that, he hadn't won, but he had placed a couple of times. He'd placed off 111 in a Class 4 chase. If we look at his form on soft, what I want to highlight, he came second in a novice handicap chase with 102, and didn't run too well there. There is another run where he ran well quite on soft. Yeah, this is the one. So he stayed on the flat nearest finish. So he ran well at Utah. So that was in July 15 off 1:22. Clearly his legs have got a bit slower now and he's aged. But essentially, I looked at, and this is where not having a closer look can lead you into trouble. I looked at 0 from 8, 0, 0 from 8 on soft as it was, and just assumed he probably didn't handle it. If I'd have looked a bit closer, I should have come to the conclusion that there is no proof that he does not handle soft, because he had placed a couple of times at much higher marks, and you maybe could have said, there's a chance he may get it. He hadn't proved that he didn't handle soft conclusively, although clearly he hadn't won on it, and you're asking a 12-year-old to do something different. So that did influence me from the instant expert. The thing that I missed, and this is something you may want to take away and apply to your own betting, is the headgear removal, the removal of headgear. And apparently, well, you can see there, he has worn headgear every run since at least October, 21st of October 13. So that's something to think about. We often think about headgear being applied either the first run, second run, third run, and that leading to an improved performance. On this example, we have a horse doing something different. Yes, he's old, but the headgear was removed and it has clearly sparked him into life. I haven't watched the race yet. I will go back and watch it. It turns out, well, it looks like it wasn't as soft as it was this morning and kind of dried out a bit to good to soft, which again might give even more of a reason why he may have been considered as a note horse and a horse I might chuck kind of half a point at or a quarter of a point at, but I didn't. The other thing to note was he did run okay on the race before. He had 2 really poor runs in May and June, but seemed to bounce back. So you may have put that all together and thought 6-1 was okay. You know the reasons why I looked at it immediately and turned it off. But there you go. There's an example, even with the older horses, to make sure you have a closer look. And I failed to spot the headgear change. I have no idea what my mind would have done if I'd have pieced all those things together. If I'd have noted that he had placed on soft, and that wasn't an excuse not to back him. But he had to do something different in terms of win or soft, and that's where you judge the price and against the opposition, the calibre of the opposition, and that was clearly poor, as you can see from that. And the fact that he was doing something different, which for a 12-year-old, that is quite a difference. He hasn't had headgear on for, what, 4 years? Longer, and the headgear was removed. So they were reasons why he might suddenly spark back into life, and that was on the back of a decent run last time out. So that's more than his Jack. You might have got something from those ramblings, but that's how my mindset worked with that. Always think, always have a look at things, always look at horses you may have missed and why you didn't back them. I'm comfortable with why I didn't on him. I'm a bit annoyed I didn't spot the headgear or take consideration of the instant expert and some of his better runs on soft. I'd be lying if I said I'd have definitely backed him if I had thought that pre-race. I simply don't know. You do have to make a special case, I think, for 12-year-olds generally at single figure price in chases. But there we go. Well done, Moorlands Jack. It's nice to see a 12-year-old win. And well done to Connections. Next, I want to fly on to the, which one was it? 4:35, wasn't it? The Clock Leary, who hopefully some of you backed. I mentioned him in the notes, so I'd said I was having a go. The reasons why were, well, I'll be honest with you, I didn't look at his rating here, and that's something I suppose I've learned. I looked at his rating in the context that, yes, he was £6 above his last win, but £6 for a handicap chaser over 3 miles, that is 1 or 2 dodgy jumps in my own mind. There's probably some science there, but as many of you who've followed me for a longer time may be aware, 3 mile plus handicap chases are the race that I most enjoy attacking cold. And this example, we had a qualifier as a weigh-in. But he won at Bangor, where he kind of was prominent and kind of led 4 out in a Class 3 chase. He ran as if he was still in form. He didn't lead at Cartmel. It was a bit further. It was a slightly better grade of race. The thing that ticked my boxes or caught my attention here, other than the fact that he was a qualifier, was kind of treble rated. Now, that is not an advice strategy for the jumps, but it's in my mind because treble rated, that's a horse race base, a GG's and an Inform Racing top rated or top 3 rated, a treble rated horse. They've done okay or done quite well on the flat. We will see in the weeks ahead whether or not the evidence builds they do okay over jumps. But that was in my mind, as was the fact that McCain's form jumped out in terms of he was a trainer in bouncing form. The others necessarily weren't out of form, but they weren't as in a good form. And the other thing which really did tick the box wasn't the instant expert. You could see it was competitive enough, although he was up against other horses, and this was noted, who had yet to prove their stamina also. So although he was a slightly questionable stamina, so was that question was applicable to quite a few others. And you will see here, this is his last updated run, but these all shifted over to the left. If I could have shown you, that was another three and a 2, and it was quite clear that he was up against horses. Well, Bailey's Concerto's never really led in his life, I don't think. And then he was up against 3 others which are systematically held up, or had been. And it would have been slightly criminal if Connections didn't try to make all on the clock, Leary. For those of you who watch the race, and that might go well along with this video, handicap chasers, especially over kind of extended distances, 3 miles and further, if you can get an easy lead and you can get into a jumping rhythm, that is worth lengths at the end, because every other horse behind, if you are going the same space and just galloping on, they have to pick up speed, and they pick up speed when approaching a fence, which means one of 2 things, and this did cost the horse that chased him home in the end. Was it 1,000,000 times? Possibly, or was it Gordon Elliott's other horse? May have been his other horse. They are approaching fences now. They either make a mistake, which none of these did, thankfully, but they can only jump at a safe speed. And you've just seen the clock, Leary, over the last couple of fences with his lead. He wasn't extending it, but he jumped well and he was keeping up the gallop. And the other horses had to try and close, but as they went into the fence, they slowed down a bit to make sure they got over it in time. And the other thing was with I want to mention, with horses which have a stamina doubt, and I don't think is an out-and-out 3 mile stayer. Banger's quite an easy 3 miles, as is Perth in a stronger run race. He struggles to see it home, but with that type, you want to be at the front and you want to dictate a steady pace. It was a wonderful ride from Will Kennedy. He went the pace he wanted to go. He got the horse into rhythm. He didn't lose any energy at fences through mistakes. He slowed it down. He kicked turning for home, so he got a couple of lengths, which meant the others had to get under pressure and get after him, and that then links to the jumping issues, as I said. And he was able to just see it out. The ride and his ability to front run and dictate is what won him this race, and it's what made his handicap mark irrelevant to a point. I should think he may struggle if he's put up another £6 or something. But what I should say is that with 3 mile handicap chasers, I personally do not get hung up on ratings and weight, because your ability to dictate, especially if I can find a front runner, to travel and to jump, and a kind of hardiness, I suppose, or being unexposed but experience over fences and more to come, is more important than any said handicap mark. As it happened with this horse, this is with his updated, but he was only 3, I say only, he was 3 from 15 6 places, so he's battle hardened, but he wasn't kind of overly raced and kind of long in the tooth in terms of having, say, 25 handicap chase starts or more. And he was just in form, and he had track position, and he had a few advantages there. And I thought, as mentioned in the notes, that 4 to 1, 9 to 2 is actually right. So to get a horse correct under 6 to 1 was quite a surprise for me, but there we go. It wasn't a surprise. He did actually what I expect him to do, and I was quite pleased he hung on. There is nothing better than watching a 3 mile plus chaser make all, if you're like me. And the final thing I will mention in this 30-minute video, we'll try and keep it under 15 minutes, is Mountain King, and why I was so happy to take him home. 11 to 8 was a ridiculous price. I'm sure some people backed him. Slap on the wrist if you did. It wouldn't have mattered if he'd have bolted up. That's irrelevant whether a horse wins. A horse can bolt up at 11 to 8 and still be a bad bet. For me, I cannot get in my head at any time how a horse at 11 to 8 can be good value if they are unproven at the trip. Now, he was unexposed at the trip, given he'd only had 2 runs. I mean, he hadn't done much, but there might have been excuses for those, possibly the ground, who knows. But he hadn't. Asking a horse to do something different is fine if you're getting a price, and that's obviously what I base quite a few of my bets on, sometimes on the unexposed end, and asking that question, is the horse doing something different? But is this horse doing something different? Well, he's not really, but he's got to do something different. He does have to do something he's never done before, and that's win over 3 miles in the context of him being 11-8. In the context of him also being a hold-up horse, when we knew a horse was going to get away on the front end. And the 40-day thing is a bit of a niggly rest pattern with chasers. In my own mind, it asks a question anyway. And you do not want the horse to have to answer questions at 11-8. And I will take those types on every day of the week. Many will win, obviously, but many will get stuffed or beaten out of sight. So yeah, that's the thought process behind a horse I backed, a horse I didn't back. That's what I looked at pre-race. That's what I thought about after the race, after I've seen the results. So you may have got something from that. You may not, but hopefully you've enjoyed watching it. And I will leave that there at 15 minutes. So yeah, thanks for watching. Until the next time, I'll be back in touch with a preview, as one of you asked, for Doncaster on Wednesday. We also have the Kerry National from Listowel on Wednesday, and that's a race I like to attack. I haven't had a look at it as yet. There will be some stats, there'll be some trends, and it's a 3-mile plus handicap chase. And I think you do want to be a prominent racer and a good jumper around that particular track. So we will see how the pace plays out and everything else. So yeah, until then, enjoy the rest of your evening. And this is Josh saying bye for now.